zero.
Go. Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks. It's Thursday night, as it always is. It's the 7th of November. It's 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, 9 Eastern, 7 Mountain, 6 Pacific. If you've got this any other time than that, maybe whatever time zone you're in, you could be watching this in any of the time zones. You're watching this on the recorded channel. This is our live recorded unedited. If you want to catch edited content, head over to theaverageguy.tv, and each of the posts has those YouTube videos there. Gavin Campbell is joining me tonight. Gavin, welcome to the pre-show.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thanks for the invite. Good to be back again. You know, so much to get into.
Oh, they're always you always have a ton. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a busy guy. I don't know where I find time for this. I honestly don't know. But
yeah, well, we somehow do find time for it. It's all good. Let me get over to the chat. Justin's checking in, and he says it's Thursday. Really? Well, Justin, where you are, it's Friday. It's Friday afternoon or Friday noon or something like that. Yeah. Brian's checking in. He says, or Friday. Yeah. Or I said, or Friday. And then he says it's Friday. Yeah. So Friday on that side of the planet, but you guys are keeping the future safe for us. Hopefully the future is there, and welcome indeed. Gavin, typically, I mean, every time I've had you on, you've been a SodaStream guy. But tonight, something different, right?
Yeah, tonight I'm drinking an espresso coffee. So I was gifted an espresso machine.
Oh,
and nice. I guess it was to kick my Tim Hortons habit, right? So they got me an espresso machine, and I found a nice combination that I like, and I'm happy with it. So I've had the Keurig, I've had the Tassimo. The Nespresso though was so much better.
Yeah, I think I have a code for that. I think if you go to theaverageguy.tv/Nespresso, I don't know if I took that down. Hold on, NESPRESSO. I think, yeah. Maybe. No. I guess I don't. But I'm an espresso guy as well. So you said you found a combo. You mean so you have 2 pods that you?
No, just I got the frother. I got a frother, and then I looked up a little recipe to make something similar to my Timmy's coffee, and you know, I got it all set up nicely.
What's a Tim Hortons coffee cost that you would normally get?
It's gone up over the years. Now it's like $2.25 for my large coffee.
That's Canadian, so it's like a nickel.
I don't know. Do I sound like I'm complaining? Are you laughing because that's
nothing? Well, it's like Starbucks. If you get anything at Starbucks, it's $6 now.
Exactly. But I was going to Timmy's like every day, so it added up. So this saves.
Yeah. The Nespresso pods are about $1 or $1.25 each. Yes. So it's about half price. You know, from what you were doing at Tim Hortons. But
save some money.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it's really good coffee. I get the double espresso pods, and then make lattes out of them using the frother. You know, just run that, froth it.
Yep.
Double shot, put the milk on top in a grande cup. I figure that cost me it's $1.25 for the pod, and the milk is, 75 cents or whatever. You pay. It's not even that much.
Yeah.
It's a dime for 10 cents.
And so I picked this up on we got it on the last Prime Day they had.
Yeah.
So it was 50% off. So my mom was looking for a gift, so I was like, "Here, buy me this. It's half price. I'll save you some money." So she got it for me. But Black Friday for you guys is coming up, so I'm pretty sure you'll see it then too if you want.
Yeah. It's a good. What about? I know it was a gift, but what about did you pay for your?
I think she got it for about $130 plus tax or something like that. It was like half price.
Back in the day, they were clearing those things out at $99 US.
Yeah.
Right? Just when I got mine, and then we bought one for work because the couple of the gals that I work with were like, we want better coffee. That Gallup wasn't serving very good coffee at the time. We've since changed all that. But and they were like, so we all went in 30, 30, 30 or 33, 33, 33. And we bought a $99 Nespresso. Pretty nice too for what in those days. They've doubled in price, and then you can find them, on sale.
Yeah, it's so worth it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, Dan's checking in. He says Thursday here. Still happy evening too. Yeah. Justin says $6 per large. Yeah, that's cheap on that end. It's not cheap. Those frou-frou ones. Espresso martini to start the weekend. That would be that would be delicious. That'd be a good way to go. So we did Irish coffees the other night, where we did decaf and then added some Irish whiskey and a little bit of Bailey's, and pretty tasty. It's a good way to do Irish alcohol is in coffee. So that was delicious. I've got, I don't know if I've had this with you, but I got some Pikesville whiskey.
Okay.
That's here, straight rye, delicious, 110 proof, which is a lot. I won't be drinking very much of it tonight. I also have a glass of water. So
just in case. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to drink all of this and just a little bit of this. I think my Thursday nights have been too happy of a happy hour at times. I get done with the podcast some Thursday nights and I'm like, what did I say?
That's true. Been there.
Yeah, I know. Right on. Justin says Black Russian, White Russian. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with that. All right, I think we're set. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Let me kick this thing off. Gavin, thanks for coming out again. Always great to have you on this Thursday. Last Thursday, Halloween here in the United States. You guys do Halloween, right?
And, yes.
Yeah. And it seems like, so I took the night off just because I thought it was going to be busy. We got nobody. Or do the kids in Canada get out and trick or treat, or is it kind of something?
I seen a lot of reports this year of a lack of kids this year.
Yeah,
in our neighborhoods. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I mean, the highlight of the night was one lady that was emptying everybody's bowls into her bag as she walked down the street. The funny part about it was she actually took other stuff off the porch. So she saw some lights she liked. She took them too. Wow. She took the bowl. She took the bowl too. So wow. The internet found her. They did their thing. They found her. And, went from there. That was the excitement.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, it happens. That happens. We shut the lights off and didn't do much, but it was a good night to take off. So we are back at it tonight. All right, let me kick this thing off here. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 628 with Gavin Campbell, recorded on November 7th, 2024. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a beautiful fall, Bellevue, Nebraska. Fall is on its way. Gavin, you were talking about 80s yesterday up there in Canada? Yep. Like, you're on the East Coast, right?
Canada? In Toronto, yeah. So
we'll just say it's east, right? It's kind of east. I wouldn't say the East Coast, east-ish. You're east of me. I would expect you guys to. Is it unusually warm for this late in November, or are you guys? Is it okay?
Yeah, I think they said the average should have been in the 3s, but we broke some records. It hit 25 degrees Celsius. I'll let you do the conversions.
Yeah.
For like a couple days, and even today was still warm. This weekend it will be 10 degrees. I'll probably go play around the golf. Nice. It's just it's nice temperature.
Yeah.
Still.
Well, good. Enjoy it. I think that the trend, at least here in the United States, maybe even in Canada, winter has been holding off a little bit later and a little bit later. Kind of hangs on a little bit longer in the spring, I think, maybe a little bit, or like, come on. And wow, who knows? Who knows what's going on? But we do know what's going on. We'll post some world-class show notes, and there'll be a few from hometech.fm over there at theaverageguy.tv. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. If you're on the Patreon team, thank you. Thanks for doing that. We just have one $5 plan. It's super simple. You can do it for 1 month or as many months as you want. Many of you do that on a regular basis, and so thank you. If you want to join that plan, head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. And then a big thanks. Gavin, you'd mentioned Black Friday is coming up for Thanksgiving. Don't forget, if you can go to theaverageguy.tv first, there's a link there. You can click through it, and in all those things, that's the Amazon affiliate link, and all those things will give give the show credit for it. So if you want to do that before you purchase, I appreciate you doing that. Big thanks to Bob and Ryan from thinkcomputers.org who joined me last week and 2 weeks ago, because I was off last week for Halloween. And big thanks to them for coming on the show. They did a bang up job, and you'll want to listen to the show if you haven't done it already. Gavin is with me. Gavin, welcome back. Good to see you.
Oh, it's great to be back. We have a lot to get into. I gather up all the stories over, the time, and listening to the show with Mike Weger the other day got me all excited. I made more notes. We're going to get into some things today.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little Home Assistant. I was over at hometech.fm before the show, kind of checking out your latest post. So if you haven't subscribed to that podcast, you should. It's a lot nerdier. It's a lot more technical. It's a lot of great information. It's probably everything this show should be, but I'm just too lazy to do the work to get it done. But the latest episode you have out there, you led off with the M4 Mac Minis, which I have queued up and ready to buy. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I don't know why I haven't. I'm gonna do it. Did you guys on the show discuss anything that could sway me from not purchasing the M4? I have an M1. Would you say anything that would sway me away or encourage me to pull the trigger a little sooner?
Oh, we're the worst to talk to when you don't want to spend money. We'll make you spend money. So go for it. Go for it. Yeah, you might as well go for it. I spec'd out a top of the line one. I added all the bells and whistles and all the monitors and everything as much as I could. And I think I came up to about 14,000. I just couldn't.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, I couldn't press that buy button. No.
Wow.
No. But I did get this week, actually, I got my first ever MacBook. I got a MacBook Pro.
Oh, nice.
An M3, first Apple computer I've ever had, so I'm learning it now. It's for work, but I mean, I gotta learn it. So
yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I don't find, Gavin, I'll be honest with you. Now I've been using this. It's coming up on 3 years. I think I bought the Mac 1 or the M1 Mac Mini. I think I bought that in February of 2021. I think that's what I bought. So we'd be coming up. It's 3-4 years. And I don't see the difference anymore between Windows and Mac. It's weird. You don't, every once in a while, like, oh yeah, I got to go to the left corner, or I got to go to the right corner. Otherwise, I just don't see that much of a difference. The M1 is still a trooper. I mean, I'm going to trade it in. They're going to give me $300 for it, and I'm going to trade it in on the 800, the 16 gig with a 0.5 terabyte of storage. That'll work for me just great. I get the M4 with the neural processor and some of the new AI stuff that is coming. So it's a $500 upgrade. That's not a bad. I mean, it's not 14,000.
I know, but it's only 500. So pull the trigger.
Oh, for sure.
And I just recently also got. I can talk about Microsoft notebook, Surface notebook.
Yeah.
And the first thing, as soon as I opened it, everyone in the office thought it looked like a MacBook. Right? Like the hardware is becoming so similar now, and it's like
they're all trying to make it look like that. They're all trying to make it look like that. The MacBook that you have is such a good performing laptop. I mean, it just works well. It doesn't got some Windows has got some real hangups with right now with power management and sleep management. It's like an old man. I mean, it sleeps like an old man. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't do it very well. Sometimes it stays awake too long. Sometimes it gets a little hot in bed.
I leave it on all the time.
Yeah, well, there are times, I mean, for me, going in between work and home, I want to close the thing and put it in my bag. And when I get home, I want to sit in the bag and be cool and shut itself down. I don't know, a couple of years ago, that just stopped. I used to do it all the time on Windows. You'd open it back up and it would wake up and everything would be great. Couple years ago, just quit doing it. And so I don't know what's going on with Windows. So I shut it down. I shut my PC down when I go places now. Now boots up pretty fast, so it's not terrible, right?
Yes,
but it should just open up and work. That's what it should do.
You need a new Windows PC too. Let's price one out.
No, I don't. I've got enough Windows. I have enough. I have 1, 2, 3 Windows laptops. I don't need another one. So I think I'm in pretty good shape. Well, we're here to talk a little bit, or maybe a lot of bit, about a Home Assistant. And you had, one of the things, I think we've been running Home Assistant now long enough. Most people have that. Maybe you listen to the show, and if you haven't, you should be. That you're now replacing things in your Home Assistant. When you first go to it, everything's kind of new. Those things are kind of lasting, though they last for a while. You're not really replacing, but I think we're to that spot. And I think in the next year or two, I'll have to replace a good chunk of my home automation just because it's aging out, right? Or it doesn't meet the protocols anymore. It doesn't do its thing anymore. It just quits. We've had some of this home automation, Gavin, I've had for 8 years, maybe 9. Yeah. And like that stuff is starting to get old. So are there easy ways to replace things? How should we think about replacing items inside Home Assistant?
There's a few, and when I was listening to you and Mike talk, I was making these notes and everything, and I actually gave this tip to somebody today too, so it's still valid. Before I get into it, though, I just want to say, Mike, I'm very jealous of your golf simulator. That's all I was watching in the background. The whole show, Mike was talking, but I was looking at that golf simulator, trying to figure out, how much height does he have, all that type of stuff. So I'm so jealous of that. But back to the question at hand. So first of all, when the problem you guys have is when you switch your devices, all your automations get messed up, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's mainly because the devices IDs change, right? So one huge tip is when you write your automations, do not use the devices, use the entities.
Okay, what's the difference between a device and an entity then?
So a device is kind of like a grouping of entities, right?
Okay.
So and you can say like a light switch, you can use the light switch as a device, and then when you tell the light switch to turn on, it knows which entity to turn on, right? Okay. But instead, when you set up your automation, use the entity directly, right? And the reason why,
because a device, they could have multiple functions, which are called entities, right? So you might have a light switch that can turn on and dim and fill in the blank on. So right, there's there's certain things. Okay.
But on top of that, in the automation, when you use the device, it uses a device ID, right? And that device ID changes every time you change a device. So if you were to delete that device and add a new device to replace it, you have a new device ID. You have to go through all your automations and re-edit them. And that's where the difficulty is. If you use the entity ID, though, that's just the string, right? So when you add a new device, if you just rename the new entity the same entity, it automatically just falls into place in all your automations, right? So you don't have to edit anything. I do this a number of times, and it's so much better. And that they always say, always write your automations when you're turning on a light, use the light entity, not the device, and that will just make it easier over time.
Yeah. Now you're talking about maybe programming it, but does that same advice? I just use the standard stuff. Same advice on when I'm setting up routines. Make sure I'm setting up the routines as an entity and not a device.
Exactly. No matter where you use the entity name, on a dashboard, it be in an automation, it could be in a script, wherever it is. Once you put the new entity name in, if it's the same name, it just fits into all those spots. It just drops right back in place.
That's good to know.
So I would, if I was replacing a light switch, I usually name the device. So I would name it like Office Light, right? And I'd leave all the entities because they'd have all their default little postfixes to their names. I leave it all the same, right? And then when I create my automation, I would say, okay, the light.office light, entity, turn it on, turn it off, do whatever. And then when I want to replace that office light, I just remove the old device from the system. I put in a new device and I would name it Office Light again. And all the light entity would fall back right into place. It would automatically get its name. That's going to make your life so much easier.
Okay. Is it worth going back in, like if in just kind of checking your automations to see how you set them up? Or is it worth like double checking for the future for that? Or would it be better just to wait until you replace the next thing and then say, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm using entities and not device IDs for whatever my automations are?
You don't have to go through and edit them all now, because if they're working, they're working. But I mean, next time you replace that device, yes, go in and replace it. And then switch it over to the entities. It'll just make it that much easier later on, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and does that have any effect? Okay, what about pass through? As we think about the A lady, right? That
Yep.
the Amazon, um, the automation bits of it. Does that with the same advice as far as because it just pulls? You tell Amazon to discover it, it finds it, it brings it forward. Does that help in that world of automation where it's just sucking it in? Because I've kind of gotten to the point. Well, this is really bad. I'm doing automations, half of the automations in Home Assistant and half of the automations in Amazon's Assistant, and then I can't remember like, oh, which one did I put where? But it's just easier. Like lights and stuff are easier on in the Amazon space for me, right? The hardcore automations are better on Home Assistant. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
When you do the Amazon stuff, it's going to be a lot more work when you replace a device, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, I do all my automations in Home Assistant, but I expose the entities to the A lady. Um, but all I really do in her world is put them in their rooms, for room awareness,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anything. But that's it, and I still have to do that every now and then. But how I name them when they get exposed, like it'll be Office Light. It shows up as Office Light in the Amazon ecosystem, and I reference it as Office Light. So I don't really have to do a lot of that because I have
Yeah.
good names.
We had our first situation where a lamp moved, and it moved down from upstairs to downstairs, and we had named it something upstairs that made sense, and then it came downstairs and it was now a part of an upstairs group but downstairs. So you turn on the upstairs lights, downstairs light comes on,
Yeah,
right? And you're like, any when you're thinking about what you're doing this a lot, Gavin. When you think about naming things, like I've been naming them things like window light or chair light or couch light. Have you because it's easier to say, like,
yeah.
I'll say, hey, turn all the living room lights on, and that's in a group, right? Living room lights is a group. Have you found any easier, better, or a more bulletproof way on naming these things, or is it just always going to? Maybe AI will fix that someday, but is it always going
Maybe.
to be a chore?
You know what? Everybody's different. You kind of have to find out the naming convention that works with you for you. My naming convention is usually like the room name and the device, in a way. So I would say again, I'll use the example of office light. And that's because if I say turn on or off the office light, it doesn't matter what room it's in, it knows it's the office light, turn it off. Like I don't have to go into the Amazon ecosystem and move it into an office. I could just say office light, right?
Right.
But then Amazon also, what nice about them is they have like room awareness, right? So if you have a Echo in like your office and you have the office light in the office room, the same room as that Echo, you could say just turn on or off the light. It will know which room you're in. It will know which light you really want to turn off.
Um,
So it's kind of, if you want that, you have to be a little bit more
yeah.
you have to sort it better.
I thought you were gonna say the Echo knows that you're in there, so it just turns the lights on.
Well,
You
it
know?
knows that you're talking to the office Echo, so it knows
Yeah,
that it's the office light is in the same room. So if you just
yeah.
say turn on the light, it knows it.
So my house is small enough that the Echoes hear each other. They
Yes.
can right, and which is handy sometimes because I can say it in the hallway. One of them is gonna hear me,
Yeah.
but turn this on or turn that off on. One of the things that I did, and I haven't fixed this yet, but I put a device out on the deck that is it's smart aware, and I called it shed power. So it's the extension cord out to the shed. That way, remotely from anywhere, like on a super hot day, I could turn the shed power on and leave the air conditioner on in it. It'll fire up the shed and turn the air conditioner on and start cooling down the shed before. That way, it might take an hour to cool that thing down, right? Well, shed and chair
There.
sound very similar in in the Amazon space. And we all know how easily she can be confused about things, right? And now I'm thinking, okay, I had to come up with a routine that every night at midnight it checks that shed power and says if it's on, turn it off because it shouldn't be on.
Yeah.
And because of just, and not me, but say my daughter is saying, turn on the chair light. the char light doesn't come on. Well, you know why? Because it turned on the shed light instead of the instead of, well, it's not really a light, it's called shed power, but it's still, I went out there one day and it was just blazing away. It was just, and I was like, how did this get turned on? So I think I guess the moral of that story is you also, I think, have to be careful as you're naming your devices, especially for the A lady. Don't get the words too close, because she sometimes has a hard time, telling those things apart. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Gavin?
No, and I totally agree. Like, she gets confused sometimes every night. Like, I'll say turn on the lamp and she'll turn on every light in the room, right? Or stuff like that, right? And in your shed situation, I remember I was listening to you. It's a similar situation because I have one of my irrigation system lines that run right into my pool. And I can tell the A lady, hey, top up the pool.
Yeah.
And she will turn on that line. It will fill up the pool to the right level and do what it has to do, right? But I'm always nervous of it staying on. You never know what can happen. So I have it set up so that when it turns on, it notifies me that it turned on. And then every 15 minutes, it will notify me, hey, I'm still running, just in case I forgot about it and it didn't turn off on its own. So maybe you should do that with the shed. You can make it, set it up so that there's a time limit. If you turn it on, it will only run for 4 hours, for example. But then every hour it will let you know, hey, I'm still on.
That's a great idea. You're okay. Thanks for coming out. I've got some work to do. Thanks for coming to the podcast. No,
I can share my script with you to do it.
That is brilliant. Yes, I'm probably going to need something like that.
All right, pick me up in the show.
When I turn it on, well, I might even be able to set this in the automation of the device. When I turn it on, only allow it to be on for a certain number of hours, right? Something I'll have to look. I'll look, because I like to try to use what they give me first before I go outside the bounds. But
some devices actually have an option in the device itself that will say only turn on for 1 hour and then turn back off. And that's actually safer than even Home Assistant because it's in the device itself. So you might want to look at that first.
Okay. Yeah. I will. And of course, that's always the second challenge, or maybe the third challenge. Like, okay, which app actually controls? We have some lights that I put up on the front of the house. They're Christmas lights, but they have all kinds of different color options. And so, like, I do red, white, and blue on the 4th of July. We do, purple and pink during Easter. I have like browns and magentas going on right now for fall, but I couldn't. I have an automation. It was coming on at sunset and turning off at 11 p.m. and I couldn't find how to shut the thing off. I turned it on the device, I shut it off, it came right back on the next day or the next evening. Where is that thing? It took me a couple evenings to kind of figure it out. Okay, that's a great idea because I need to do that. Couple comments coming in from the chat room. Tony says our most frequent use for home automation is voice light control for lamps. For sure, that works out really well. We do a lot of music that way through it. Brian says, what? Confused? Never.
Yeah, she never does. Yeah.
And Tony says Google never gets confused either. Sarcasm there intended. Dan says I've got Google devices, not Amazon, but constantly have issues like that. I think that on both sides, that those are pretty true. And then Tony says tell Google to turn off the one active alarm, and it proceeds to list the 10 inactive alarms. Oh, that's a whole nother thing. And then the A lady makes suggestions for you. Well, I don't know how to do that. But I could start doing this and I could start doing that. Brian says I have a regular issue asking A lady to play a particular radio station. One potential workaround is to use the Alexa app to select the station and device to plan. And that is true, right? The apps, the Amazon A lady app, I shouldn't have even said the word I said it a second ago. Sorry if I've sent off your devices. But sometimes going into the app is the way to do it. I found that. Now there's a ton in that app. Do you use the A lady app very often?
Barely, to be honest. I don't remember last time I actually launched it. Like I think last time I launched it was to go into it and see what she heard and why. Because there's the privacy section, you can see what she heard. And I was curious why she heard something else. So but I barely use the app.
Have you ever gone in? I think there's a section where you can listen to the last 10 instructions that were given to it or something like that,
Yes.
and you can hear yourself giving it instructions. And one time, I have to be careful because Sarah's right over on the other side of the wall. I could hear her whispering to it, it was just hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
and then have you ever whispered to the A lady? She'll whisper right back at you.
Right back. And you know what? I'm always afraid to try that because the wife would be sleeping. I'd be like, hey, I like, like, and the one time I do it, she doesn't whisper back, and it's like 3:00 in the morning. And it's like, thank you.
You're like, I love you. And then all of a sudden, I know you do. In fact, I've been thinking about you often.
Yeah.
Full
By
volume.
the way,
starts playing, I can't fight this feeling anymore, all of a sudden full volume. So well, there's some that's a really good, I think on some of those devices, like you gave me that advice, run it for 2 hours and then shut it off. I think there's some of those things we just don't think about.
yeah.
There is there's a night option to say, hey, shut everything off at this hour regardless. And you can put that light in a group. Do you think it's worth doing something like that? It's going to catch you on New Year's when you're up, you're up past, because you say, hey, at midnight, just shut these things down. I'm never awake.
Yeah.
And then do you think it's worth it to run a routine like that, even though on New Year's Eve it's gonna all the lights in the house are gonna go off right at midnight? Maybe that's how you know. Maybe that's how you know.
So for my night routine, it's manually triggered mainly.
Okay.
So it's when we go to bed, we say goodnight, it closes all the blinds, locks all the doors, turns off all the lights, etc., right?
Yeah.
But as a backup, I do have it set that at like 2:30 in the morning, if we haven't triggered it at that point, it will do a kick in itself at that point, right? And I also have a guest mode, and the guest mode stops it from triggering at all. In general, because if I have a guest like house sitting or something like that, they'll just go around and flick all the light switches themselves, right? Like they do know that routine, and everything in my house can still be controlled physically by like a regular light switch. So they'll go around, lock the doors and flick the light switches and close the blinds and go to bed.
Right.
So that's how I handle it here.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good way to do it. One of the things I realized on Halloween was that we control all the outside lights now automatically. And of course, the signal that you're not open for candy is just turn all your lights off. So I had to go in for the day, shut everything off. I ended up, it's like, that's too much work. I just shut the switches off.
Yeah, cut the power. I actually have a switch for that too on my dashboard. So I set up a little button to disable outdoor motion lighting. So it basically won't trigger the lights when I turn on that button. So I think of all these little things.
No, you do. You're super smart that way. You had mentioned in the notes that Home Assistant has been making lots of dashboards. I use the overview dashboard, and on my screen I have a overview map, which is basically just your location. And then I have an energy one. I don't have any energy devices, so they're not tied into that. Are there other things I should be looking for? When you say they've been making new dashboards, what does that mean?
Well, not that they've been making new dashboards, but they've been putting a lot of work this year into dashboards. So they created a new sections kind of card that you can put other cards into now. And the main reason, the nice thing about that is, as you resize your dashboard, it resizes nicely. Things get moved in nice ways and stuff like that, right?
That is hard. Yeah, it's been terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also allow you to change like card sizes and stuff. That's a pretty new feature. They just added micro changing. So they've put actually a lot of work into the tile card and all these things for the dashboard this year. That's made it that much better.
Okay. That's good, because I was moving, I run a Microsoft Surface, an old Surface. That's kind of my control panel, and it died. So then I had to move it to a laptop that's touchscreen. And as soon as I moved it into a new resolution, everything moved everywhere. I'm like, no, I like them in this spot. Now, that being said, if they move around a little bit, eventually, within a day or two, you kind of get
used to it.
You get used to it. It's not that important, but well, good. That's good to know. I have noticed a little bit. I think last time you were on the show, I mentioned I had 2 Home Assistant instances running on my Unraid, right? since then, I'm back to the regular dashboard and it looks great. And it sits right here. I have it up all the time. It's got the car on it. I've got all the batteries for the ring cams. I've got all the lights and plugs on it. I've got 4 Govee humidistats that have both the temperature, they're for the cigars, for humidity, temperature, and then battery, which I think is kind of cool because you can kind of say, oh, that battery's getting close to being. What else do you what's on your dashboard? What else do you monitor? You got a lot of stuff. How big is your dashboard? Do you have like a giant TV to run your dashboard?
No. Well, when I say dashboard, for me, it's mainly just the app on our phone, right?
Oh, okay.
That's how we control everything.
Really? You don't put it on a PC at all? Like on a
Nope.
big Wow.
No, everything's
Okay.
just the app on the phone, and we have it on all of both our phones.
Okay.
And I've written the dashboards to work with the phones, right? And I've put a lot of work into my dashboards, more into the making them dynamic. So when I say that, the pain point for me with dashboards, especially when you have as many devices I have, I think I'm up over 300 in terms of devices, right? But what my dashboards was, whenever you got a new device and you put it all in, I had to go into multiple dashboards and edit them all to put the proper tiles there and everything like that. So that I kind of got fed up of, and I went to work and I created what I call dynamic dashboards. So when I get a new device, I just pick the entities I want, I put them in a room, I add a label to them, and based on that information, it knows where it goes and puts it on every dashboard that it needs to be on, and in whatever format it needs to be in, and adds it nicely, right? So I don't have to go and edit all these dashboards. And it took me a while to set that up, but it's been a combination of YAML, Jinja code, macros, a lot of macros, and it works nicely now. So less work maintaining dashboards now.
You have a lot of patience, my friend.
Yeah, I do. I watch a lot of TV, and then I do this while I'm watching TV,
Yeah. So, speaking of Uyghur, last time he was on, he talked a little bit about Llama, right? The LLMs from Meta. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Llama?
Llama. I think it's Llama.
Llama.
Yeah, that's the self-hosted one. Yep.
Yeah, the self-hosted LLMs, basically. But I think when you're some of the versions that you download are called LLAMA, I think.
LLMs.
Yeah. And so I gave that a try too. So I went out there, went out to the link, loaded up what I needed. It's all scripting, right? It's all, at least at this point, it's all like command line kind of stuff. But listen, I did it. It's actually, if I did it, anybody can do it, right? It's not that hard. There are a few.
Don't downplay
it. It's actually pretty easy. I mean, once you figure out, okay, we're doing it this way, this is how it works. You get the container, or not container. In my case, it was the application. I did it straight in Windows. And then you figure out a few of the commands to get this thing running. It's pretty cool. I'm imagining then that's got some Home Assistant capabilities too, right? Is it making the AI for Home Assistant better?
Oh, as we move forward, I've noticed the AI is getting better and better. I'm getting more excited about it, right?
Yeah.
And the things it's bringing. It's still not perfect, right? But it's getting so much better. I don't yet host my own AI ChatGPT or anything like that, mainly because I'm still looking for a video card that I can throw on my server that can handle it and stuff like that, right? But I'm using ChatGPT, and I've actually been playing around a lot with that lately. So I use an add-on for Home Assistant called LLM Vision, right? And it's mainly used for video and stuff like that, for use with your cameras. Yeah. And this thing has blown me away with what I've been playing around with it to do. So my first thing that I had an issue with is I use Blue Iris for my cameras, right? And it has its AI built in, but it's not that good. And it especially gets choked up on things like when it's snowing or raining, then all of a sudden I get alerts of constant people in my driveway or people in my backyard, or if there's a spiders love my cameras for some reason, it just drives it nuts, right? So what I do now is I actually tied it into ChatGPT. So what it does now is, in my front at night when we go to bed, the alarm's armed, the lights are all off and everything. We're in night mode at that point, right? If Blue Iris detects somebody's in the driveway, it sends a notification to the LLM or to ChatGPT. It'll send an image. It will send it. I have it coded to ask it a specific question, and ChatGPT will analyze that image and say yes or no if there's really somebody in there in the driveway.
Okay. Yeah.
And it cuts out all those false alerts and stuff at night, so I won't get woken up. And then then Home Assistant will wake me up based on the answer from the
you're on the paid plan to do that for
yes
on the $20 a month or whatever it is.
And so far it's used very little money out of that account, right? I think I loaded up with $10 and I probably used maybe less than $1.
Oh, so you're on the API where you can you pay for queries going in. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I was doing, and that really took care of that problem. I was also messing around with it to try and see, like, people in our area like to walk their dogs, but they don't like to clean up their dogs. So I actually had it, if it detected a dog, ask it, is the dog taking a crap on my lawn? Right? And let me know if it is, right? The only problem with that was it could distinguish between, dog doing number 2 or female dog doing number 1, I kept getting these alerts for, dogs taking a poop on your lawn, and I was like, is it really? No,
that's hilarious.
So, but it's amazing what you could do with like that stuff. Like, another thing I did was I just fed it all my camera entities and I say, give me a summary of what's going on around the house. And it looked at all the cameras and it basically told me, like, yeah, you're sitting in the living room watching TV, and in the backyard it's very calm, and in the front I see 2 cars, and it described it all to me. Right. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, what it did, and like I said, it's still early stages, but where it's going, as it develops more, it's going to be insane. And they just released a version 1.3. And the crazy part about this is now it allows historic questions to it. So basically, when it gets notifications and stuff like that, it kind of stores it in like a hidden camera in Home Assistant, calendar in Home Assistant. So now when you ask it, hey, did anybody deliver a package to my home today? It will actually query the calendar. It'll look at the calendar and say, I saw somebody delivering a package at 3:30 this afternoon. It looked like it was a FedEx guy, and let you know that. And it's amazing what it sees and how it determines that.
The reason it's amazing, by the way. Yeah. The reason I got into it is what's sitting right here, which is the Pikesville whiskey, right? What I wanted to be able to do was pick up a bottle of whiskey, put it in front of the camera, then pull it out, and it would identify what whiskey it is and how full it is, and it would catalog it. And then when I was done, I would put it back, or the next time I showed it, it would be like, oh, you actually have less in there than you had before. And then at some point when it gets, I don't know, down to here, it would make a whiskey list for me that says, hey, the next time you're here or whatever, listen, in the future, you could say, once it gets here, find the cheapest place to buy it. And then if it's under this price, buy it for me. Right. Go ahead and pull the trigger, have it shipped to me or whatever. Yeah. Set some parameters in there. But the inventory piece is what I wanted. Now we figured out because we drink, we have wine often with our meals here. And so what I really wanted it to do, also do the same thing for the wine upstairs. So show it a bottle of wine and then just say, hey, when I show it to you, take it or add it to the list to buy next time. Well, you can actually do that really easily just by saying, hey, lady, add this to the wine shopping list, right? And all of a sudden I was like, okay, there's an easy way to do that. But I still think it's a fairly valid show this and then, catalog how much I should be able to say how much whiskey is in there. And it would guess something, right? Don't you think? Do you think you could do that
I think so. And it would be good for society because it would be able to determine if you have a drinking problem or not too, right?
This goes to what Justin was saying in the chat room, something along the lines of, the freezer is using more power. He's thinking about, hey, monitor my power, keep track of it on a regular basis. And then I want you to do some quarterly or monthly analytics on it and say, is there something I need to get looked at? Is there something beyond the standard deviation? That's the same problem Is right?
Yes.
Am I drinking more whiskey more or less?
Your
And is
consumption went up this month, Jim.
should I get you a counselor?
Yeah.
Should I get you some, something some other way to relax?
Yeah.
But Justin, yeah, you're right. I think this is a good indication for it. I couldn't, in the scenario I was at, I don't have enough skill to figure out how to get it to record things yet. So, okay, it's taking a picture of it, then it's putting it somewhere, then to your point, it's giving some historical context. So then eventually I could say, give me a list of all the whiskeys you've seen.
Yes.
Right. And that would just be an inventory list. And then tell me how much is left in each.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Could you do that? Do you think you have the
if I really put my mind to it, I probably could, but
Yeah.
I feel like this is something that should be easy to do in the future. Like right now, you could spend a lot of time trying to get your perfect whiskey inventory app going and stuff. But I feel like in the near future, not too far future, it will just be part of the AI where it will start remembering more about you.
Yeah. Well, I want it to remember. Yeah. Do I? Well, yeah. Jim, we're shutting off your credit card because you're buying too much whiskey. No,
people are always afraid of it knowing too much about you. I'm at that age now where I'm like, you know what? Just figure out everything about me so you serve me better ads. I'm seeing ads, just make them more entertaining to me now.
Yeah, right on. Justin says, I don't have a alcohol problem. I have a people problem. And that might be true as well. Yeah. Anything AI wise, are you thinking, you said some of the stuff you're going to kind of wait for it to hit, but anything else you're working on AI wise with Home Assistant?
I've played with the voice integration. I know somebody mentioned it in the chat. I can't remember. I scroll off the bottom, I think. But Home Assistant, the crew has mentioned that they're making their own smart speaker. They did say it, I think, on one of their live streams. They hinted at it. It was mentioned on a few other podcasts. Yes, there you go. It was Justin that mentioned it. That is, a lot of people are looking forward to that because their AI, when you get this, their AI is tied into things like ChatGPT, and there's multiple AIs out there, and they work with multiple of them, right? And that's where you get a lot of the value and the strength of it from, right? I just like the Amazon lady because I have Sonos all over the house, so it's integrated into all the Sonos speakers too. So it's like I have one device that handles two different functions, and I kind of like that. But I've been watching, I actually have some of the little devices, but I never got them to work. But I'm watching this closely, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Do you think we'll get to the point where, okay, so back to I do have an alcohol problem, but back to the whiskey example, where I could tell it, hey, I'm going to show you a picture of this. I want you to tell me what it is and tell me how much is left. And then I want you to remember it. And behind the scenes, the AI would write the code to do that for you. Is that happening already, or are we still not there yet?
I don't think I've fully utilized it. I believe if you tell like ChatGPT something, you say, remember this, it adds it kind of to its little database about you, right? You can actually ask it, tell me what you know about me. And it will say, you own this 3D printer and you're into this and you host this, and it's interesting because it's based off of questions I asked. So I think you can be able to do that.
This is where I think the self-hosted would work really well because in the cloud, they're worried about data. All of a sudden that thing could balloon. If you were like, hey, monitor every video that goes to YouTube and do, all of a sudden the database gets gigantic on this thing, right?
Yeah.
But self-hosted, there could be some. Do you know on the self-hosted ones? Can I talk to those yet? Or everything I did, I was typing in. But have you seen anything yet where they're working with voice recognition so I could just talk to it? Have you seen any of those yet?
Yeah, if you tie it into Home Assistant, then you'll use the Home Assistant speaker and you'll go through the Home Assistant voice pipeline, and then it can utilize the local one, right? So there's ways to get into it. It's just, I think a lot of that's still maturing. right? They're still working on wake words and getting that perfect. You know, it's not easy, but they're making a lot of progress.
Okay. Well, there's a lot there. All of a sudden, you start thinking about those kinds of, it would be great to take a picture of my garage and say, inventory all my tools.
Yep.
Like, tell me what you can see, or a video, run through video, or even multiple pictures, and then say, tell me what you see and inventory it so I know what I have. And then I want to be able to ask you, hey, where in my garage is that? And you find it for me.
I could probably do it in Home Assistant, where you can just, again, with this LLM Vision, you could just feed it image of your garage, and you say inventory all the tools in the garage, and then based on that response, you can have the automation added to a list or something like that. So it can be done. It's not the prettiest thing, and that's why I'm saying, like, eventually we're going to get there where it's so easy.
Yeah. Well, there's that kind of stuff. It was gimmicky early, right? It kind of gimmicky, and you'd ask it questions about you, or who am I, or what, write a story about something, write a blog post for me or whatever. But when you think about some of these inventory capabilities, or some of these monitoring capabilities, boy, there's some really neat, it's a terrible word, but there's some really interesting things coming.
And I'm pretty sure at work you use Copilot. Are you guys on to Copilot yet?
Yeah, we have Copilot.
So I find I'm using AI more and more as it comes along, right? One of the things I really like using Copilot for is, one of my coworkers writes a lot of documentation, right? He constantly, and it's like hundreds of pages, and I never read it, even though I say I do. I never really read it. But some of the things I use Copilot for is, when something breaks, I say, hey, look up in his documentation where he mentioned this breaking, and it would actually query his documents and bring me back the information I want. I found that a time saver, because I don't know where he leaves the documentation. It's somewhere on the SharePoint site, but I don't have to go through this 200-page document. I could just ask AI to find it for me.
Oh yeah.
So I use that a lot.
That reminds me. So I've been collecting, I had a guy write a query for, I manage this community of certified coaches for Gallup. And when they change email addresses, we don't have a really, really good way. We see it happen in one system, but the other system doesn't have awareness to it. And eventually they'll get to programming that. But in the meantime, what I did is just have them do a data dump for me once a week, goes into a secure file of all the email addresses that have changed in this system for that group of people. Well, so what I just do to it today is I just go to that folder, and I use SharePoint to search all of the documents all at once to do it. But I could now ask Copilot to do that for me, instead of, it's not that much faster, not much better, but it is. Now you got me thinking. I wonder what else I can do with that data that's in there.
I use it for a lot of stuff now. I find, like, a lot of tedious tasks. So if you had a data dump of emails and the last time they were updated, for example, I would just feed that into ChatGPT and say, just give me the latest email for each person. Right. And it would do all the tedious stuff instead of me doing an Excel spreadsheet and doing a VLOOKUP or whatever we used to do.
You trust it for that? You think it gets it right?
It's been so I do a lot of coding with it, and I would say, write a function that does this, and it would spit out something. And a lot of times the function's not fully working, but it's enough to get me started. And it gets me like 90% of the way there. I make the few fixes I want, and then I'm good to go. But it still saves me hours.
You got me thinking. You got me thinking. I do have a manual process that I do every single day now, and I don't mind. It's not terrible, so I don't mind doing it. But I'm kind of thinking, I wonder how I could put this in SharePoint and then have Copilot do some of that work for me.
You can do it.
Yeah, I did try it. One of the things I did try was some LinkedIn automation, and Copilot said that's not authorized. Like, you're breaking the terms of service on LinkedIn, because it was going to be an automated process, so they don't allow those kinds of things.
Yes.
So I was like, no, you can't do that. Okay, well, you give me too many things to think about, Gavin, when you're on here. And now I'm going to spend all of tomorrow. I'm going to spend all of tomorrow trying to hack these things. Okay, Over at hometech.fm, you did a product highlight. Zoozy, is that how you pronounce it? Zoozy
Zooz.
Zen34?
Zooz.
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 Zooz. What do you got
Zooz.
for us?
So, if you're not familiar with Zooz, they make Z-Wave products. They're one of my favorite companies when it comes to Z-Wave products. Our products are solid, they work great, and they have some different products. And I bought a few of these actually this week, and they're called the if you could see it, they're called the Zooz Zen34 remote switch. Now, it looks like a toggle switch, right? Like a regular light switch, but it's a little box. And what's cool about this, right, is you can have actually put it into the into the box itself where your light switch is. So you can buy, if you have a single gang light switch, you could buy a 2-gang plate for it, and this goes beside it. You don't have to cut the wall or anything like this. You can put this button, so it has a little backing that goes in there, and then it's magnetic, and then it sits in there, right? So it's like adding a switch to your wall without
That's
actually
hilarious.
wiring.
That's
right?
hilarious. I love it.
They also have a 4-button version of this, and where I use this, so the 4-button one I use for my fireplace, right? So I have that on the wall now, and I actually put little icons and stuff on it. And now you start the fireplace, you just press up, or you can adjust it all from that. So I have one for my fireplace, and then in every room where I have automated blinds, I actually added one of these to the switch plates, right? So when guests are staying over, whatever, they know they can open the blinds by pushing the button, or close the blinds by pushing the button, and they really work really well.
Wow.
Like, they're great little devices.
What's the retail on them? And what do I need to be able to run this? Like, do I need another device to be able to hook this thing in, or how does that work?
Well, they're Z-Wave devices.
Okay.
Right. So basically, the up button or the down button, they just register as 2 events,
Okay.
2 different events. So if you press up, you can have your automation say, okay, press up, that event was triggered, open the garage. You press down, the event was triggered, close the garage. You could do things like that. I think they would be about 50 US or less.
Okay.
I'm not too sure. They're not too bad. I have about 3 or 4 of them in various rooms, and I love these little things. On top of that, they can actually come off the wall. So if you wanted to just take it off and move it to another place in the room, and control whatever, if you use it to control volume, for example, and then you can just stick it back on into the plate, when you're done. So it's great little device.
I had a Philips one. I think it was Philips. I had a device like that. Now, it already came on the plate, but it was designed to screw into the box that you would basically just cover. Like, you're not going to have, like, you're going to jam the wires back in there, and then you're just going to cover it with this plate. And it was a switch. It was a 3-way or maybe 4-way switch on there where you could do, and it had the different symbols on it. And then you would pair it with whatever light you were going to, you'd push the buttons and dance around with tapping your head, and it would eventually pair with something. And then you could do it that way. But I find those handy. And Brian's asking if you've got a link for that. Do you have
you could get it on Amazon, or the smartesthouse.com, I think it is. That they're the Zooz, that company owns that site, and you can order directly from them if you're in the States.
I'll put the name of it, Brian, in the chat there. Zooz Zen34 if you're on audio. Yeah, so I found those to be helpful. I did try to wire up some of these, like some of these switches and it's been a while, but some of the older switches had a big box on the back side that you'd wire. And I think I fried a couple of those because I was trying to put them in the garage, and those were metal boxes. And the tolerance on the sides was super small. It's almost like they didn't make them small enough, right, to get all the smarts in them. They just didn't get it as small as it needed to be. And so I kind of gave up on some of those switches, but these, there's no
wiring and stuff.
Electrocution.
Yep. No, it's all it's so nice. Though, I've replaced so many lights. I've replaced every light switch in my house. So I've kind of gotten it down to a science of getting into the small, where you put electrical tape around the sides and how to wiggle it in. And then I use those Wago clip-in, connectors. Yep. They free up so much space in that box. So I kind of got it down to a science now, and I have no more to change anyway. So
did I take those out to the garage already? Hold on, let's see. I had a whole bunch of them. I have a whole box of those Wago. Man,
they're awesome.
They are awesome. I just put in I have a 50 amp generator service coming into the house now that I've been working on over the last couple of weeks. It'll make a future show at some point when we're all done. I've got the backbone of it built. I have the wire that going into the fuse panel, right? I'll put a 50 amp breaker in there so that I can switch off the grid power and switch on the generator power. Built it in a way I could put batteries in if I need to. Everybody I know is sick of me talking about this thing because I've been spending so much time on it. And I still need to run the outlet out the wall. I had to get a 1-inch concrete bit to get through the wall. So I'll drill that through and put it in. But those for all I put in 8 regular plugins to it, plus, well, the other ones wouldn't matter. Those wires are too big, but 12 to 20 gauge wires, you just slide the things in and it grabs them and you fold it back in. Like, no more wire nuts, no more taping those things. It's awesome.
They're amazing. The only part that upsets me with them is they make a 1, 2, 3, and 5, connection one. You know how many times I've needed a 4? And of course they do not make them in 4. So
just use the 5. Just use it's fine. It's fine. They're not that. They're not. I think I bought a pack of 10, like for the 3, for 3-wire. Like you can buy a kit of them on Amazon and get a sample pack for like, I don't know, $20, whatever. And then I bought some here at Menards. I bought some, and I think it was a pack of 8 or 10. It was like $3 or $4. They're not terribly expensive. They're just a million times better than a wire nut. I mean,
so much better.
It is crazy. And then with the ones I had, when you go to pull it, you push them in and they lock in. And then with these, if you spin it, it'll allow you to pull them out on that one. The other ones I bought from the actual company have a little
lever,
a little lever on there you can flip. Oh man, now I'm looking for things to wire. I know. Take that box apart, and so they have definitely made wiring a lot better, for sure.
Yeah. And I have devices where they're seasonal, so I have to unwire them and rewire them, and the wires start to get worn down when you use the wire nuts. So these save the wires too, like my pool pump. Like it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. If you haven't been using those yet, definitely get out there and get them. WAGO, I think is the right spelling for that, and get those. They're getting super popular. I'm sure there's some knockoffs that are coming out with it, but they're getting really popular in the wiring space. If you're doing this kind of stuff, definitely worth a look. What's coming up? Hometech.fm is the site that Gavin is at on a regular basis. What's coming up out there? What are you guys looking forward to?
We've been really busy over there, which is a good thing. So, Seth, thanks to Mike, has been playing with Meshtastic. So he's been talking about that a bit. And, he's also looking into power generators. So he lives in Florida. He lives in Sarasota, Florida. And the last hurricane went right over his house. And it was kind of cool. Well, actually, it wasn't cool, but it was, cool. Right. He set up a camera outside his house. So we watched the hurricane as it came in until it knocked out the camera. So, luckily, he just lost a few shingles and some gutters and stuff. It wasn't too bad where he was. He got away with a lot. Neighbors got hit a bit hard, but he's now looking into the power generators. And he heard you talking about it and stuff. He's like, I got ping Jim and see get some advice there.
Yes, and when he makes some decisions, and when he makes some decisions, we're gonna have him back on here, and we're gonna. I can't stop talking about it, Gavin. The people at work are like, shut up about generators. Yeah. So, well, cool. What else?
And then we had a few interviews recently. So we had Tom and Owen from the Home Cinema Design podcast coming in. They talked about home cinema design. If you're a home cinema person, these guys are at a next level. Like when they look at certain things, I'm blown away. They know all the math and everything like that to design your home cinema, and they've worked on some really expensive rooms. So it was a great interview. I wasn't there for that one, but Seth and TJ held down the shop while with them, and it was a great one. We also had an interview with Maxwell. He's the founder of a product called Aquaflower, and it's basically a device that ties into Home Assistant that monitors and waters your plants. Right, so it's a really cool device. We talked about even the future of adding maybe things like soil sensors and things like that to it.
You know I like them.
So yeah,
You know, I like them.
and then we have another interview coming up. I don't know if I can say this one yet, but it will have something to do with robotic lawnmowers. So
Cool.
that's a little spoiler. That
Good.
one's coming up soon. And I'm also, going to be talking about Apollo Automation. They sent me a whole bunch of devices, air quality sensors, the plant soil sensors, in-house stuff. So that's really cool stuff. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on over at hometech.fm. And then myself, I'm going to be on the Home Assistant podcast in the next couple of weeks. So
I had no idea that that's them. That's the company that runs that podcast, or is it a bunch of independent?
No, I think it's fans of Home Assistant, but they've been doing it for so long and they kind of got the name. So I think they're almost like the official podcast now, right? And I just realized one of the guys on the podcast actually lives in the same city as me. So maybe I'll meet up with him. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, that'll be in the next week or so. I think I'll be on that podcast.
Is this like haspodcast.io? Is that the right?
Yes, I think that's it.
Is that the right? I'll throw that in the chat room. HASspodcast.io if you want to check that out. You'll be on here in a couple weeks. Is that when you're gonna join?
Yes. Okay. I'm supposed, I think, recording next Friday. Yes, that's the website. And
Phil and Rohan.
Yes, that's them.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Good.
So, of course, more that we'll be talking about Home Assistant, obviously. Probably going into more my setup personally and stuff like that.
Well, you have a lot. I mean, you should be on that podcast. The home tech guys, I mean, you certainly carry the weight over there, TJ and Seth, whatever. But, whatever. You're carrying those guys. But I'm sure you're going to be a good guest for them on the Home Assistant podcast. So good work.
They always have great guests, though. Sometimes the guests they have blow me away with what they've done with Home Assistant. So cool. It's a really good listen.
Okay, we'll have to watch that. Anything else, and I'll wrap it.
No, that pretty much sums it up. Like there's plenty other things, but that's all good.
Oh yeah, plenty of other things. Thanks for coming on. Always thanks for saying yes, regardless of how much time I give you to say yes, and appreciate you and your love of Home Assistant and all things tech. It's a great fit. So, Gavin, thanks for coming on. You're preparing for the winter, right? I mean, winter's coming. I know it feels like summer. Have you got the pool drained? Is everything
of course
covered up? You're all taken care of.
Pool's done. Everything's disconnected. Lines are blown out of all the irrigation system. I just did the tires this weekend, so I got the winter tires on. I'm pretty much ready for it to get cold. I said that last year though, and I don't think I shoveled once, or I may have shoveled lightly once. And we bought a new snowblower, and I never got to use it last year. That's
gas or battery?
It was gas. Okay. It's gas. Yeah. So maybe I'll get to use it this year. We will see.
I would go start it right now. That'll guarantee.
Oh, that's this weekend.
Okay. Go out, change the oil, put some fresh gas in it.
Doing that this weekend. Gonna get it all tuned up and ready. Yep.
Yeah, guarantees you'll never get any snow. It's when you can't start it. I kind of need to. That's a good reminder. I need to pull my snow blowers in the shed, and I need to pull that out, get it into the garage, and get it started. Probably change the oil in the mower. I like to do that before I put it in for the winter, because I never in the spring, you have that moment when you're like, I need the mower now. Yes. Like I don't want to, so I try and get that done in the fall. And I probably need to pull my generator out and get that started. I haven't run it since the power outage in June. And you kind of want to run those things, get the gas kind of fresh.
Get familiar with it,
Get it. Yeah, just make sure it's still running. It starts on the first pull, some of those kinds of things. Well,
yeah,
it's always a sad day when you close the pool, but it will be open here before. What do you do with the home automation that you have to shut down on those? Because you're monitoring this and that and all these things on your pool. Are you ever tempted to repurpose some of those devices during the winter to do other things?
Nope. So I see where you're going with this. I know what you do. I don't run into that mistake. So my the pool pump switch is
You're right.
hardwired out there.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
can't remove it. So it stays like
Okay.
out there. I just cut power to it. And then the water temperature monitor and the water level monitor kind of clip into my basket, into my skimmer. So I just pull those out. I throw them in a little box. I don't even take the batteries out. I just leave them in the Home Assistant, let them keep reporting. And they're just inside.
Okay.
That's it, right?
Okay. All right. Yeah, this might be the first year that the Christmas tree plug actually stayed in the Christmas tree box, and we'll Home Assistant's waiting for it to fire back up.
Yeah.
Do I have it? Did I take it out of the HP? I guess I took it out. I'm gonna have to add it back into my. I've got the shed and the litter box light and the garage light and everything else is there.
Usually when you take out a device that's unpowered for a long time, like if it's a Z-Wave or Zigbee, I usually recommend to just exclude it and add it back the next season, right? Because then it's not in the device as a dead device, that could affect network performance and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's in the box. I didn't pull it out this year. I wrote on it, Christmas tree, do not remove.
I leave my Christmas tree plug in the wall. Like I just leave it there, and
I wish
all the automation still click it on and off and everything. Like it's still going. But
I need a flat Christmas tree that just you would just put on the wall, and it's the shape of a Christmas tree, but it's just flat.
A half Christmas tree.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's sticking out. I mean, I don't want it sticking out halfway. I want it about this thin, which is about 2 inches thin, and just the shape of a Christmas tree. And it would just give off the lights of maybe I could put listen, last thing. TVs are pretty cheap. Maybe I could get a big, giant 70-inch TV, mount it to the wall in portrait mode, and then just run a picture of a Christmas tree.
I'm going to start up the Christmas tree channel where the lights go in patterns. We're going to get this. We're going to make some money off this,
50 different like Christmas trees. Yeah. Every day you get a different Christmas tree on there. I've done the thing on the, up here where it's got the fire, I've got a picture of a window and a fire going, in the background or whatever. Christmas trees, maybe that's
because they have the fireplace channel, right? So I mean, Christmas.
Yeah, no, right on. Christmas trees, Christmas. You never know. Well, Gavin, again, thanks for coming on. Can you stay for just a second as I close this up? Is that okay? All right. A couple reminders on the way out. If you want to join our Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Good conversation. Maybe one good conversation a week, so it's not going to take a ton of your time. If you want to join that, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Leave me a message if you got 30 seconds of a question or a comment or whatever. Head over to homegadgetgeeks.com. There's a little button there, microphone button. Push it, leave a message. Love to hear from you. And just Baba Booey me. If you're gonna do nothing, just leave kind of a crazy message. That won't make the show, but you never know. The AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, still powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. And Christian, coming back here first week of December, so we're not too far away. Plans still start at $10 a month. I should say as low as $10 a month. If you want to check it out today, check it out, maplegrovepartners.com. He can host. He's really good at hosting podcasts, but he can host just about anything. So check it out today. If you want to send me an email, and many of you do, I appreciate that. When you do, send it to jim@theaverageguy.tv. And appreciate it. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central. Well, not every Thursday, but most Thursdays. We're out here 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. If you haven't head out to the YouTube channel, maybe you're missing shows because you're not subscribed. Well, subscribe on your podcast app or subscribe on YouTube, and you'll get automatic notifications. I mean, speaking of Home Assistant, I need my own Home Assistant Home Gadget Geeks app that just sits there and tells people there's a new show available. Gavin, can you write that? Write it for Home Tech. Maybe it's a service of some kind, right?
You could probably, because there's plugins for things like Slack and stuff that can send notifications. So maybe it can be automated. You just press a button and boom, it shoots out the latest one.
Yeah, or I could push the button on Home Assistant and it would just play through my speakers.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. It doesn't have a podcast player? Home Assistant doesn't have a podcast player?
I don't know if it plays. It has media player built
Okay.
in, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool because you could send
Yeah.
that to AirPlay all to your speakers and stuff. I don't know if it has direct integration with podcasts, but podcasts are just RSS feeds,
They
so
are.
something can be done.
Yeah, you talk to the guys about it. When you're talking to those guys on the podcast, say, "Hey, my buddy Jim over at Home Gadget Geeks, he wants his own Home Gadget Geeks home assistant app that plays the show." If you're listening live, thanks for coming out tonight, and for all of those of you listening on the podcast, why don't you come out and join us? I'd love to see you on a Thursday. It's not hard. Just head out to theaverageguy.tv/live Thursday night, 8 p.m. We'd love to see you. Thanks for coming out. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Yeah, I want that app. I need a home assistant. Have the play button, and you just push play, and then it will just play right there.
I'm pretty
awesome.
sure it can be done because they can tie it into Spotify and stuff like that, where you just have a playlist and you push a button.
Yeah, I'm sure
You'll
that's
just be a
probably
playlist.
that's the right way to do it. Is Spotify.
Yeah.
Have a Spotify on there.
I'm pretty sure I can do it.
Oh, you can do anything.
Well, you'd be surprised.
We made Brian laugh.
Justin. No, it was Brian made me laugh. Gavin as a service, because that's kind of a nickname I got over at the Home Tech podcast, because everybody kept asking me questions and I'd answer them, so they called me Gavin as a service.
Dan is checking out for the night. Dan, thanks for coming out. Hey guys, listening live. Thanks for coming out. We'll be back next week. I think I don't have anybody scheduled yet, but I'll figure it out. We'll get that scheduled, and we'll see you guys back here next week. We got 2 weeks. Don't forget, we have 2 weeks, and then Thanksgiving here in the United States. Yep. Sammy, I'm hoping after this recent election, I'm not sure how in the mood she is, but we'll see if we can get Sammy out here for that Friday after Thanksgiving. I think that's the 29th. And so we'll see if we can get her out here to fill in for that. And then the week after that, Christian's joining me for the 14th anniversary show. 14 years.
Wow.
We've been doing this, and we'll do the show with Christian on the